Welcome to the Essential Tax Podcast with your host, Mishkin Santa. In each episode, we'll take the complex world of tax, all the jargon, acronyms, and stuff that make your eyes glaze over, and explain it in an impactful way to understand the complex and unknown areas. You can find this show on all the major platforms, including YouTube, LinkedIn, Apple Podcast, Spotify, and on our website, thewolfgroup.com. Now, here's the host of Essential Tax Podcast, Mishkin Santa.
Hi, everybody. Welcome to the podcast. Today, we're going to do a mini podcast about when an asset is placed in service for purposes of the depreciation deduction. I get this question all the time. I bought this item and I didn't really use it until the following year. Which year do I take the depreciation deduction on? There was a fantastic case, which I'll put the link in the show notes. It was decided in March of 2025. It's called the Lentine case. Great analysis by Judge Mark Holmes. And basically in this case, what we see here is we've got the taxpayer owned an LLC that was disregarded. So basically the chartering of yachts, which is what they own. They own a yacht for chartering, basically passed through to the individual income tax return. They started the yacht chartering business in 2015 with a yacht, an old yacht, and then they basically bought a brand new yacht at the very end of 2016, but they didn't do their first kind of charter until early 2017. And so when they filed their tax return, the IRS said, well, you didn't really place it in service until 2017. So you can't take your bonus depreciation deduction until 2017. You took it on 2016. That's improper. And the judge in this one really did a fantastic analysis looking at Treasury Regulation 1.167 and then kind of going into the Treasury regulations for 1.46, which is an old credit regulation, and kind of walking through, okay, what does it mean when something is placed in service? And I'm going to read to you a couple of the things that were noted by the court in this case so that everyone can kind of understand where it's going to. One key thing that they focused in on was, quote unquote, when the functional property was acquired by a taxpayer for use in the going concern on one date, but not used by the taxpayer until a later date. So there's a lot of cases focusing on this timeline disparity where something is purchased in one calendar year, but not used into another calendar year. And there's several cases that the court goes into. It talks about installing a laundromat in an air conditioner in the wintertime that's not really used until the summertime. It talks about a barge that got trapped in a lake and was not able to be really used. It was frozen in the wintertime. It was not able to be used until the spring when the lake thawed out. When was that put into service? And so what the court eventually decides is that as long as the property that is purchased in its completed state, and there's a case that talks about an aircraft that was purchased and it was used temporarily, and then the owner of the aircraft decided that they wanted to rip out a lot of the stuff inside the aircraft and put a bunch of PowerPoint screens and all sorts of stuff in there. And so that didn't happen until the following calendar year, and it basically denied the deduction from the initial purchase and pushed it into the next calendar year because it wasn't complete and ready to use. So basically, if the property that you're purchasing is in its final format, if it's in its final state, it's ready to be used, then even if you haven't used it, and again, Treasury Regulation 1.46, which I'll put into the show notes, really goes into that. There's a couple of really good kind of explanations that they give there about farming equipment that is purchased but not put into use until the next farming season, or equipment that's used and then tested to see if it can do what it needs to do, but not really used until a later date. But basically, that's where the court is pulling from. And so for this particular case, the Lentine case, it was decided, and there's notes between when the owner purchased the property, basically saying, look, I'm trying to purchase a yacht that's in a final format for charter. I don't want to do any kind of changes or updates to it. It needs to be charter ready. And that was kind of the deciding factor. And the judge specifically says the right question to ask in this case is whether the yacht was in its completed form for its specifically assigned function, and it was. So it allowed the deduction for 2016. and disagreed with the IRS. So the IRS lost the case. And basically, this helps us kind of put our arms around when something is placed in service. So hopefully everyone will find that helpful. I'll put the Treasury regulations and the citation for the Lentine case in the show notes if you want to look at that further. It's a really great tax court case to read, though. It's not a long read at all, and it's got a lot of good nuggets in there. Thank you.